Hey, everybody, welcome back to the Small Market REI podcast. We've got a great show for you here today. We got two guys that are near and dear to a lot of people in small markets. What they do, they deal particularly in manufactured housing, mobile homes. And, in our markets in West Virginia and a lot of other small markets around the country, I think that we all have some experience with mobile homes, whether it be single wide, double wides, whatever. And I've listened to these guys and what they're doing down in the South Carolina area. And man, it's just fantastic stuff. So without further ado, I'm going to introduce you to Chris and Robert, and let's say Chris go first and just kind of introduce himself and what he does and the journey that has brought him to this point. Chris.
Yeah, no, appreciate the intro. Yeah, my journey kind of started about 6, 7 years ago. I was in college. I had a little too much fun partying. I got hooked on drugs, went down the wrong trail there. Ended up getting arrested, and I was going to school in Atlanta at a school called Kennesaw, and I relocated up to Greenville, South Carolina. This was in 2018. I was 20 years old, sitting in my mom's basement trying to figure out what to do with my life. So I got a small part-time job at this place called Fastenal, selling like commercial and construction supplies. Um, and started listening to a lot of podcasts, started looking at YouTube, just trying to figure out what I want to do with myself, really. Um, Ended up starting a pressure washing business July of 2019, I want to say. So I was just washing people's houses, and there's this one guy I was always washing houses that he flipped or his apartment buildings or things like that. And he was also a real estate agent. And long story short, we sat down one day. He's like, "Man, what do you want to do? Like, what's your goal here?" And I was like, "Man, I just want to make 100 grand a year. That's like the biggest I could think at the time." And he's like, "Well, man, that's a lot of houses to wash. Like, you're going to be a busy boy. You should think about getting into real estate." And he was a real estate agent at EXP, which, if anyone knows what they're all about, he was trying to recruit me. And at the time, I didn't really know that. And so he's like, go get your real estate license and start there. So July of 2020, I went and got licensed. Was kind of doing retail stuff. First house I ever sold, my mom's neighbor had this old double wide, and he just wanted $50,000 for it. And he didn't want me to list it because he didn't want to pay 6%. So he's like, just go find me a buyer, I'll pay you 3%. Long story short, found this buyer for him, uh, and sold it. Went through. The lady that bought it, she was also a licensed agent. And she moved over to my brokerage. I was at Keller Williams, and I saw her in the office maybe 2 months after that deal was done. I was like, "Hey, what'd you ever do with that double wide?" And she's like, "Oh, I wholesaled it." And she's like, "I made $20,000 on it." And I'm like, "You're kidding? I made 900 bucks." And long story short, she's kind of held my hand and showed me how to wholesale. So I started doing that beginning of 2021, and was slowly accumulating rentals and stuff along the way, flipping houses, kind of everything under the sun besides commercial. And I don't know, got to 150 or so rentals, and found out I wasn't making a lot of money doing that. So I started selling financing things off. And then in 2022, the licensing board for South Carolina came out with some new regulation and basically banned wholesaling for real estate agents. And it was new legislation. I got a cease and desist order in the mail. Someone had ratted me out or something. So I was like, well, I guess I got to stop wholesaling. And I started doing mobile home parks because I had owned a couple or bought a couple. And I was like, I guess I'll just wholesale mobile home parks. It didn't sink in that wholesaling wasn't allowed for me for some reason. But got a mobile home park. I was going to sell it to Robert. We ended up partnering on it. Rest is kind of history from there. We had done some flips together, and then one day we were talking and said, "Man, we need to fill some of our lots in our park." And Robert had a mobile home dealer's license. It was like, "Oh, we can get brand new ones for 30, 40,000, whatever." And I don't know what happened. I feel like I suggested, but I don't remember entirely. I was like, "Man, why don't we just put brand new double wides on lots, make them FHA compliant, and sell them on the market? It's, quick cash, kind of like flipping houses without some of the headache, maybe." So Robert and I fumbled through it and figured it out. We had never developed land. We did not know what we were doing at all. But we kind of fumbled through it, and that was, I guess, 2 years ago. I think that was 2023, Robert, when we did our first one, if I remember right, or when we got our first lots at least. But
Yep.
anyways, rest is history. Now that's pretty much all we do. But Robert, I'll let you go ahead and introduce yourself.
Well, yeah, so Robert Howell here and based in Clemson, South Carolina, go Tigers, but kind of moved all around growing up and my dad worked for Coca-Cola, so every time he got promoted, we moved around and settled in Greenville, South Carolina from really fifth grade onwards. Went to Clemson, got a job after Clemson in event marketing and traveled around the world doing events and marketing for big brands like Coca-Cola, Delta Airlines. Awesome job. Went to, I think I've been to seven Olympics and been to the Super Bowl, been NASCAR races. But then COVID hit and I was like, well, shoot, there's never going to be an event again. I got to do something different. And I'd always been passionate about real estate. And so started buying and selling real estate. Came across a guy that owned a mobile home park and he said, hey, would you like to buy that mobile home park? My nephew owns it actually. And I said, sure. I don't know anything about it. I'd been buying affordable housing, and really that was my focus. But so it kind of fit that affordable housing arena asset class. And so I bought it, owner finance. It was a great deal, and started buying and selling mobile home parks, really buying more than selling. Sold a couple and made some good profits so I could 1031 into more mobile home parks. And so now I own 26, 27 mobile home parks, about 300 pads. But like Chris said, we teamed up together on some mobile home parks, and then we're doing this land home package deal. So really, our focus for the last few years has been finding land, uh, making sure that it'll allow for manufactured housing, and then developing that land and selling the manufactured house, the mobile home, and the land together. Nice brand new double wides here in South Carolina. We're aiming to sell for 200, 230. But that's the story. I love it. Really my goal is how many of these can I do so that I can pay down my mobile home park debt faster. And it's really working out great so far.
Oh man, that's fantastic. That I'm sure a lot of our viewers are going to have a lot of questions about this. And by the way, I'll be in Greenville next weekend. Uh, my
That's
daughter
awesome.
play my daughter plays softball for Youngstown State University,
Okay.
and they'll be at Furman playing in a
Okay.
tournament. So
Nice. All
she
right.
was recruited
Well,
at Furman actually years ago.
it's a
When she
great
was an
school.
yeah, yeah. But all right, guys. Well, yeah, yeah. I got several questions. I guess first off is when you do the mobile homes on the lots, okay? You talked about doing them FHA compliant versus maybe just a standard conventional type loan or cash.
That's
So
right.
you kind of one of you walk through what an FHA compliant mobile home, is that strapped down? Is that piers? How many piers? What all does that consist of?
Yeah, that's a good question. And happy to answer really detailed questions. If someone wants to reach out, you can reach Chris or I anytime. But
Okay.
from an FHA standpoint, 99% of the buyers that we sell to are FHA buyers. Now we do sell VA, USDA, and conventional and even cash. But we took the decision that when we set these up, we're going to go ahead and set them up for FHA. And FHA guidelines is a national guideline. The interpretation of that guideline is done by a local engineer. So I'd encourage you, if you're interested in doing this, reach out to a local engineer that will sign off on FHA guidelines. And the reason I tell you that is because there's lots of different ways to do it. And some FHA engineers are very by the book. Some have slightly different interpretations. But generally, I'll tell you the requirements of it. So the requirements is that it's permanently attached to the land. And so that's done through the anchoring system, the foundation system that could be concrete footers, that could be ABS pads, um, and the underpinning. So the underpinning being a permanent surface, not a vinyl surface. You can do vinyl, but it's got to have like a framing system behind it. We do brick underpinning or concrete board underpinning for the mobile homes. Um, and so the FHA engineer will come out and they'll inspect that. They'll see, okay, it is strapped permanently to the land. They'll also look and see, okay, it's on permanent foundation. Um, and it also has a permanent type or hard surface type underpinning. So they'll sign off on that. They'll stamp it, give their stamp of approval. Here locally, you can hire. There's engineers that you can hire directly. Most recently, we've hired an inspection company offers the service. So, like a standard house inspection service has an FHA engineer on staff that will sign off on them. And then the final step is to detitle that mobile home. And so, and we do that during the development process. We don't want to wait till closing. It cost us $1,000, $1,500 here locally to detitle a home, but we think it's well worth it so that we don't delay the closing later on, waiting on the county. Because when you detitle a home, the county has to come out and inspect it.
Okay. All
David,
right.
if I
So
may intervene here real quick,
go ahead.
one of the things that's important to note, if a mobile home moves more than one time, it will not be FHA compliant. And so you don't want to go on Facebook Marketplace and buy a used double wide and move it out and do all this thinking that it'll be FHA. It cannot be moved more than one time.
And for our listeners, when you say detitle, that is basically converting it from personal property to real property, correct?
That's right. That's right. So from a county perspective and tax perspective, it's attaching that mobile home to the land. So it's billed as one tax bill.
Okay, yeah, that's a good point there, and we have a lot of experience with selling some double wides, and that's already set up and doing these types of things, and so that's a good point for our listeners. Um, I know you guys talked about getting a dealer's license. You have a dealer's license. Do you think that would be something that people would really need to do to get started, or did you guys just buy them at a local mobile
You know
home
what
dealer?
I would, yeah, I mean, what I would say is it depends on the market. There's markets where you can sell these mobile homes for 250 to 300 and even more, if you go out west. And in those markets, buying from a dealer's lot is perfectly fine. Your margins will be slimmer than if you bought it direct. So getting started, maybe it's not something that's required. Um, but I'd say if it's something that you want to do for the long term, it's well worth it to go ahead and get the dealer's license. That being said, we have our dealer's license and we can sell in multiple states. So if there's someone that's listening that's interested in doing this and they say, hey, I don't want to get my mobile home dealer's license just yet, because it is a timely and somewhat costly process, depending on the state, you feel free to reach out to us and we'd be happy to either try to help you ourselves, or if we can't help you, we know people in different states that have their dealer's license that'd be happy to help you. And it may be more affordable than going directly to Clayton dealer's lot, as an example.
Right, right. Yeah, I would listen to to some stuff you've done before. And last night I was on the West Virginia Department of Labor, looking at dealer's license for mobile homes just to see what in fact it did entail and the costs associated and stuff like that. So
Hmm.
uh, it looked like it was about 1,500 up front and some other requirements and stuff that
Yeah.
they. But
Yeah. So typically, like a dealer's license, you're going to require a certain number of years experience, a certain amount of money in the bank, a surety bond that bonds you, um, audited financial statements. You have to take, in some states, you have to take classes and pass a test. So each state's a little bit different.
yeah, I do think that maybe I read something about a test. When
Hmm.
you went into the Department of Labor, it talked about mobile home installers, it talked about mobile home dealers, it talked about so it all kind of run together a little bit. But yeah, that's just crazy interesting because we do have a really strong mobile manufactured housing market here,
Hmm.
and we do have dealers in the area, um, Oakwood and Clayton dealers that are out here actively buying land.
100%. And they do that around here too. And they have I'd say in the last 5 years, you've seen the dealer lots have a more active role in buying land and doing spec houses than they have in the past.
Right. Right. And once I came across what you guys were doing, I don't know, it was this past summer. I had a lot, I had a house on it, tore it down, sold the lot, and I sold the lot to Oakwood, our local
Oh
Oak.
yeah.
and they uh, put a home on it, and the whole 9 yards and sold it. And I'm thinking, man, I probably should have looked into something like that.
That's funny you say that. We have a education program called the Land Home League, and one of our students told us that exact same thing. She was really a land trader, um, and she said, I sold these two lots to these people, and they put mobile homes on it right away, and for what they bought the lots from me and what they sold the mobile homes for, it looked like they made a lot of profit. So she took the decision to say, "Hey, I'm just going to learn how to do this myself," and she has done that, and she's already done one home down in the coast of South Carolina, and she's got a few more lots that she's going to do that on.
Outstanding. Yeah, well, I think we're going to try to do some. Travis and I've been talking about it, and I think that just opens up another avenue and another way of making money in this business. And
100%.
people in our markets, we're in these smaller markets, so we got to be able, we got to be able to see all the different ways to make money on all these different deals that we do. Look at a piece of land with an old house that needs torn down. We're thinking, hey, we can take this house down, do a mobile home, a mobile and land deal, and turn it into a good investment.
Yep.
So, um, Chris, if you were starting out today, let's just say a young entrepreneur out here in the real estate business, what would be maybe the first action step to get going to do these mobile home type deals? What's first? You go out and find a land deal, or can you kind of walk us through that real quick?
Yeah, I mean, I think that is absolutely step one is finding land. And a lot of what I did, especially when I started out, was partnerships. Working with people like Robert or people that had experience in the business or they had money that they can bring to the deal. I didn't have any money. I mean, I had a pressure washing business. I didn't really have that much to work with, and I couldn't go to a bank. I didn't have 2 years of tax returns, and so I had to just kind of piecemeal things together by either working with other people that would bring money into a deal. And so all I did was focus on finding the deal, whatever that looked like, whether it was a house, a mobile home park, a piece of land, whatever that is. And then going out and finding the person that I could work with or wholesale it to. Um, with land for mobile homes, the first thing you're going to run into is zoning. And so kind of like you were saying before we started talking here, is you can't really niche down a list in these small towns, or else you have three records to call and you're done in 20 seconds. So a lot of what we do is we don't really filter our list by motivation. We'll just filter them by zoning and by road frontage. So I don't care if they have a tax lien on it or whatever. I'm not looking for motivating factors like that. We're just pulling a list based on what's the zoning, will it allow for mobile homes? And then, of course, we want road frontage. And so we'll kind of stair step our road frontage up. We have a data guy that scrapes county lists and pulls these records for us because I know you can't do that really on PropStream or anything like that. But if it's like a half acre, we need at least 50 feet of road frontage because we're only going to be putting one house there. If it's 1 acre and we're doing two lots, we need at least probably around 100 feet of road frontage comfortably. And we kind of stair step it up that way. We're usually doing half acre lots because they require septic tanks because usually you're not in the city, you're out in the county somewhere. So in South Carolina, at least, you usually need about a half acre to comfortably fit a septic tank. So that's kind of how we're finding our land. We're sending out direct mail, we're cold calling. But to answer your question, I really do think step one is finding the deal. Raising money for this can be a little bit interesting because not many people are doing this. And so you almost have to educate your lender or your partner on what exactly you're doing, which is kind of another challenge with this. But I think finding land is absolutely step one, and then figuring out the second part of it.
So the ideal lot size would pretty much be about a half acre, right? For anybody looking to do this. I mean, because you're right, most of the time you're outside of city limits and you're dealing with, square foot requirements, septics and stuff per bedroom and all that stuff.
I would say comfortably that would be if you're just looking to do one house. I think right now we have 20 something lots we're doing these on right now. I think maybe only three of those we bought and we did not subdivide. Most of our land we're buying, 2 acres and chopping it up into four lots, or 5 acres, chopping it up into nine lots. We subdivide most of our land because it can be hard to find just a little called an infill lot. But if you're looking to just do one off to start with, then I would definitely recommend you at least start with a half acre or above to comfortably do it.
Okay. What does that look like with you guys? I mean, if you bought, let's just say you bought a piece of property and you divide it into four lots, what do you normally end up roundabout as far as per lot cost basis in your in your mobile home deals?
So when we're doing one-off lots, we like to really pay a max of 30,000 per lot. We don't really care the price per acre that we're paying. We just look at what's our cost per lot. So if one-off lots were usually around 25, 30,000, I would say is what it shakes out to be. Ones where we've subdivided, I feel like those are typically coming out to about $20,000 a lot. So we're able to obviously get that cost down a little bit. Um, One thing to keep in mind with subdividing is, at least here in South Carolina, there's almost two different classifications. If you're subdividing more than 10 lots, you're then considered a major subdivision, which
Right.
then you have a whole slew of things you have to go through. So we try to stay less than that to stay out of messing with the county and fighting with them as much as we can. But to answer your question, I'd say when we're subdividing, we usually land around $20,000 per lot. If we're doing one-off lots, it's usually 25, 30,000 that we're paying for each lot.
Okay, yeah. Here, I think in the county that we're in right now, I think more than four lots.
Wow.
They consider that a subdivision. So yeah, so you'd have to working under that a little bit. Um, but yeah, I mean that's interesting. So the 25 or $30,000 cost basis that doesn't include anything. That's just your land costs, getting the land ready. That's no septic or anything like that.
No, that's nothing. That's just buying the land itself. Um, and when we get it for $30,000 per lot in our market, we're usually netting out around 35, $40,000 profit on the back end of that. So if we can get a $30,000 lot that already has septic and water tapped or something, there used to be a house there. I mean, that is a phenomenal deal because we're paying $6,500 for a septic, and we're paying, I mean, 5 grand plus sometimes to tap water and all that. So if it's already got utilities on it, then it's awesome. And we're willing to pay a little bit more if it has utilities already in place. But yeah, that makes a huge difference.
Yeah. Well, lots of times in our area, we have a lot of older homes on nice lots that, houses that need torn down that, has some
Hmm.
of the things you're talking about. Sometimes it's connected to city sewer, sometimes it's not, sometimes it's an old septic, but it usually has a water tap and, everything on site. So, to our listeners out there, I think that's probably this is a real viable um, process for people to be able to buy maybe old homes, tear them down, or
I
just
mean,
old
even
vacant.
old single wides, right? And that's one of the marketing channels we've thought about is how do we maybe identify a data list of old single wides on land and market towards those. Because if we can
Right.
get an old single wide for 10, $20,000 and then demo, it's already has all the utilities there. It's great.
Yeah, man, that's fantastic because that hits home to us because we are, you know, they're everywhere here. Old single wide setting on, lots and stuff like that.
Hmm.
So basically, you demo that single wide, and then you look for, you just make sure the lot's big enough that you can put more of a double wide back into that
That's
spot,
right.
right?
Yeah,
Yeah.
and it comes down to how big's the lot, and then the septic. Is the septic, was it a two-bedroom single wide? If so, you need to extend the drain lines.
Hmm. Okay. Yeah, we run into a lot of that here. I mean, I think everybody does with septics and dealing with the health department and different things. But um, you know, in our area, what we see is that the health department and the county is willing to work with you on these because they want these places cleaned up,
Right.
turned into a viable tax base, and of course, usually people in the area are complaining about them anyway. You know,
Yeah.
Yep.
the old home sitting there just falling down, rat infested, and what have you. So the good thing about it is, and I tell people this, it's possible to do some good and make some money, and it cleans up a lot of neighborhoods and stuff. But
Yep.
I'm sitting here hogging all the time from Travis. But I had one more question about how do you guys in your market, how do you see the value difference per square foot from stick built 10-year-old home versus a new manufactured house on a lot? I mean, what would be the value difference? Is it pretty close? Um,
It's a good question, and one that we talk about often because really, as you look at the market, although some of the dealer lots are doing spec houses, spec manufactured housing, there's not a lot of comps that we can sometimes confidently look at to say, all right, we know if we put a 1,400 square foot manufactured house here, it's going to sell for X. And so we have to look at used manufactured housing. We have to look at stick built houses to just try to identify what the market's going to hold.
hmm.
And it's not an exact science. I mean, honestly, most of the time it's a gut check. We just bought a lot today in Anderson, South Carolina. It's an okay market. We haven't done a lot there, and we just looked at the neighborhood. There's no manufactured housing in the neighborhood. The county has said they would allow it, but houses that are 50 years old are selling for 200K, and so we feel confident going in, somewhat confident. Although I told Chris yesterday I wasn't quite sure, but somewhat confident going in that um, we can sell a brand new 1,440 square foot, 3 bedroom, 2 bath manufactured house for 200, right? Because as you're a buyer on the market, we just put ourselves in the buyer's shoes. We're a buyer on the market. When we get done, our house looks and it feels like a stick built house. And if they have a chance to go in a brand new house versus a 1950s that maybe has been slightly updated, our hope is that they'd be willing to pay similar prices.
And it sounds like the values are somewhat similar to here. You know, I know I was just thinking about you guys and about our podcast today, and I was thinking back about it just hit me about 3 or 4 or 5 years ago, maybe. I remember, and this is kind of a stock market thing, but I remember Warren Buffett taking a big position, I think in Oakwood Homes, maybe
Clayton
one of
Homes.
them. Which one was it?
It's Clayton Homes.
Clayton Homes, one of them. And I thought, back then I thought, wow, if this cat's, you know, making an investment in this thing,
Yeah,
he
there's something there.
there's something there because, he's got all the data. And I'm thinking, maybe maybe I should be looking a little closer at what's
Yeah.
going on with manufactured housing. And then it was like 2 years later, 3 years later, man, it's a slap you in the face. Like, wow, these homes are selling for that now.
Hmm.
Yep.
It was just like overnight, the market exploded. So, let that be a lesson to kind of read the tea leaves out there. When you see guys like Buffett putting money in something, maybe us as small investors should probably pay more attention, what's going on.
Right.
Absolutely.
Right.
But Travis, go ahead there. I've kind of ran through the questions I had there. So,
Yeah, man, I think you did a good job, David. You guys, there's been a lot of value added to this interview. One thing I do want to let the viewers know, like, a lot of people are thinking mobile homes and, they start thinking like, oh, well, nobody wants to do mobile homes, but these are really nice homes, right, guys? Like drywall. I mean, these are really nice, right?
Oh,
Yeah.
100%. Yeah, we've done drywall and they feel exactly like a stick built house inside. We've also done panel board. So everything in between, but regardless, a brand new manufactured house feels awesome. You got to think these things are engineered and designed by professional people, right? And they're designed to maximize the open space, to maximize the space inside the house, inside the bedrooms, inside the bathroom. And so they're fantastic. Stainless steel appliances a lot of time, oven hoods, double vanities, soaker tubs, showers, stand up showers. They're great.
That's awesome. So when these homes get delivered on your land, what do they look like on the inside? Does anything else got to be done? Like, are they already put together?
Yeah, there's a lot to be done. There's no question about that. So the house arrives on site, and when the house arrives on site, they comes in two trailers, two pieces, and so those pieces have to be put together, and that's done by a mobile home setup crew or mobile home installer. They're gonna what they call is block and tie down the house, and that will put the house together, make it watertight. Once they do that, then we have to trim out the house And so we're going to go where the seams are on the inside of the house. We've got to go and make sure that, we've put flooring covering, we've, trimmed out the walls and the ceiling. And then on the outside, we have to put the vinyl siding up on the outside on the ends of the house. Um, then we've got to do underpinning, decks, water, sewer, everything that you would do on a traditional house. But it's a lot quicker. Say a house takes you 6 months to build. We can be from the time the house delivers, if everything goes perfect, give us a month and a half, 2 months, and we've got the thing listed on the market.
Nice, nice. So I would assume that you and Chris are both in there sweating doing all this yourselves, right?
Chris doesn't even know what one looks like. No, I'm just kidding. No, so our role sorting kind of how we split our roles is Chris does all of our acquisition and our financing and our funding side of the business, and does a great job. I mean, Chris finds some fantastic parcels. And then I manage more of the operation side. Now I'm not, I don't know anything about how to put one of these together, but I'm coordinating with some great subcontractors to make sure that it's put together seamlessly and perfectly so that it lasts a long time for the home buyer.
Awesome. And Chris mentioned that I think it was Chris that mentioned that you guys are doing like at this time like over 20 of these you're working on. I would assume since you guys are working on so much at one time, it's a pretty simple process, right?
That's right. That's right. I mean, it's streamlined. We have process, a system that we follow in order to make sure that these are done on time and done as efficiently as possible. So yeah, it's a fairly simple process, and that's why we like it because it's the same process every single time. Now, is the grading slightly different? Sure. But in terms of like how the house is set up and the steps it takes to get to a product that we can list, it's the same every time versus flipping a house, it's the different every single time, right? And Chris and I still flip every once in a while, but every time we do, yeah, we regret that we did it.
Yeah.
But because we can plan and we can know and expect what's going to happen on these.
Yeah. Yeah. It's funny. I'm watching David as you say these words and you're speaking to his soul when you say that. Um, so how many of you guys completed so far?
We've done, I think, Chris, what's the number? Like, I don't know, 40, 45, something like that.
Yeah.
Over the last
Uh,
several years.
we mathed it out with Brent, but I can't remember. I want to say it's probably 45 or so is what we'd said.
That's awesome. That's awesome.
Our
So
goal this year is to do 50. And so we're pretty humming along here. That's on average, 4 a month. Some months, that's why I have all this gray hair. I think in December and January I did 10. Um, we're listing next week. We're listing 5. So depends. It kind of comes and goes, right? As we find lots and the lots are ready. But the average is about 4 a month.
that's awesome. You guys are crushing it. Chris, I know you come from the wholesaling background. You were dealing with houses a lot. How do you feel about the difference between acquisitions for land and houses?
Well, I was going to mention that earlier. Land is significantly easier. I mean, you guys know when you're dealing with someone that you're trying to buy their house, they might have some sort of emotional attachment to it. Maybe they grew up in that house or that was their dad's house or whatever. But the other side of all that is when someone has a house, it feels like there's so many possibilities with it. Oh, I could rent this out, or I could give this to my kids and they could move in, or I could fix it up and I could put it on the market. Whereas when you have a piece of land, all it does is cost them money every year. There's paying taxes on it, and developing land and building a house is a lot more complex, or at least it feels more complex than hiring a contractor to fix up a house. And so when they think about that piece of land, they're like, am I realistically going to do something with this? And if they're being honest with themselves, usually the answer is no. So I found that a lot more people are receptive to selling land than houses. On top of that, there's a lot less people going after land because it does feel so much more complicated. There's so many more um, hoops to jump through, especially with the county and all of that. And so, not many people are going after land, or at least in comparison. Everyone and their mom wants to flip houses and feel like they're on HGTV. No one wants to develop land, really. So I found that it's significantly easier for us to get land deals.
That's what I was figuring, couldn't tell you how many times I've sat on grandma's couch and listened to her tell me about how she's raised her whole family there, in that
Yep.
house. So I figure with land, you have a lot. You have two, probably several different types. You have the person that wants an arm and a leg and never going to sell the land, and then the people like you're saying that they're ready to stop paying taxes on it, right?
Absolutely. And it's funny to that point, back in the day when I was wholesaling, I always avoided land like the plague. I think I've done a total of probably 150 wholesale deals, and I think I only wholesaled one piece of land because I just never understood it. I would get the land leads and just like throw them away because I just did not get it and didn't know what to do with it or who would buy it. So yeah, dude, I feel you there. I've talked to grandma a lot, and there's all these emotional attachments and it's hard to get a price out of her and all, yeah, but land is definitely a different ballgame when it comes to all of that.
Great answer, man. I appreciate it. I think that's all the questions I have. I know we're running out of time here, so I'm going to let David take back over, and you guys can tell people how to contact you, and we can go from there. Thank you, guys.
Yeah, guys. I know in closing here, I really do appreciate. I mean, this really speaks directly to us, and it speaks directly to, probably thousands of people across the country that's in these smaller markets that really hadn't thought about, doing exactly what you guys are doing. So, and that's the kind of content that we're trying to get out there to new investors. Um, but if you guys, in closing, if you guys would like to talk about, give out your contact information. You all have like an education program as well?
We do. And I'm going to put in the chat here our phone numbers. I don't know
Okay.
if y'all put graphics on this at the end or not, but you can put Chris and I's phone number. The best way is to text us or call us. Happy to take any calls and help people along this process. If you're considering investing in land home packages, happy to help in any way. We do have an education program called the Land Home Program, and it's a group of people from all over the country. And we teach people how to do the entire process from beginning to end and handhold the whole way. So we're happy to do that, or happy to just answer a question. So feel free to call us. Don't feel like you're going to get a hard sales pitch because you're not. That's not what we do. Chris and I are really just operators. We had a guy, Brent Landsharp Brent, who we met over a year ago, and he said, "Man, you guys are doing great. You're already doing this. You know how to do it. You're teaching people how to do it. So why don't you get paid to do it?" And so finally, in November, we started working on this program and it's been great so far. So we've got a whole online deal. We've got 2 calls every week, and then we text and email and call with a lot of the people that are in it. And there's people from California to Arizona to Colorado to Florida, North Carolina, Georgia, South Carolina that are in the program. So there's a lot to learn, but I think even more than that, the network of people that are in there is really powerful. But you call us. You're not going to get the hard sales pitch. We'd love for you to join, but call us if you have questions. We'd be happy to answer. We just like helping people. And really, at the end of the day, we're operators. We're not really, online course salespeople here.
Yeah, and if you're listening on audio, my phone number is 770-862-0246. Robert, I'm flattered that you had my number memorized and you put it in the chat there.
Yeah, my number is 864-293-2798. And I'd be lying if I told you I had it memorized, but I just looked at my phone and typed it in.
Okay, guys. Well, we sure appreciate you coming on and spending some time with us here today. And that land home program, man, that sounds like a pretty good gig because it's kind of a niche, and that's I always feel
Yeah.
like that's valuable content for people, valuable
Yeah.
information.
And hey, to both you and Travis, y'all give us a call. We'll get you home at discount wholesale price, and as soon as you find a lot and get it shipped up there to West Virginia.
Hey, we'll
Time when you're
probably,
down here, you should come look at some of these.
yeah, I'd like to. I mean, I'd like to say I'm gonna be down there next week. So
When are you coming down?
Not this weekend, but it'll be next weekend. We'll be down.
But just on Friday, Thursday, Friday that week,
I'll come
or
down probably Thursday afternoon, and then
okay.
my daughter plays Friday a doubleheader, and then Saturday a doubleheader, and then we'll probably come home Sunday, I would say.
All right. Well, listen, if you come down a little earlier Thursday, let us know, or if you have a gap on Friday, you can write off the whole trip. You'll be good.
I'm all about that. You know that for sure.
All
Okay,
right.
guys. Well, I may reach out to you if I can get down early Thursday. And
Okay. Sounds good.
but uh, thank you guys for coming on with us. Great content, great information. Can't thank you enough. And to everyone out there, thanks for listening. This is a Small Market REI podcast, and I'm Coach. You can reach out to me at coach@coachbuyshomes.com. Thank you all for listening.